Welcome to another episode of Clinic Success Secrets, the podcast where we uncover the strategies and insights that drive clinic growth and elevate patient care. I'm Tomas Dwyer, founder of Clinic Success Partners, a medical digital marketing agency dedicated to helping clinics serve more patients and achieve the success that they deserve through digital marketing and automation. Today, I'm truly honored to have the inspiring guest that is Dr. Bernard Ang. The owner of Amherst Village Dental, Dr. Ang is a highly skilled dentist with a sincerely inspiring growth mindset, continuous improvement. Dr. Ang is a highly skilled dentist with expertise in implant placement surgery, bioaesthetic dentistry, and full mouth reconstruction. In this episode, we'll dive into his journey, growth strategies, mindset, patient acquisition techniques, marketing insights, and no doubt much more. All valuable lessons for any clinic owner listening and that are looking to expand their own businesses. That being said, Bernard, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Nice to meet you, Thomas.
So that being said, before we dive into where you are today, what's worked, would you mind sharing to the listeners a bit about your own journey and how you ended up where you are today?
Yes, so I'm originally from Singapore, and I came to the States to further my studies. And I actually was on track to be an engineer. But before I left home, a lot of my friends who are engineers told me that, you know what, you probably should just look for something else to do because don't be they're so stressed with their work. So before I even left, at the back of my mind, I thought, maybe I should look into something else to do. So when I came to the States, thinking that I'll be doing engineering, and I came here not knowing that dental school was actually after your first degree. So the school that I went to actually has a program with UPenn Dental School. So I thought I just, basically check them out. And I thought I was just going down for a visit. But after meeting, it was a very casual meeting. And before I knew it, they were offering me a place to go to dental school. I was like, seriously, I have not even taken DATs. I'm not taking all the subjects. And they were like, yeah, if you want to come, you can finish all your requirements and you'll be in the next year. I was like, wow, that was easy. So that really started my journey into dentistry. And, not knowing anything about dentistry, that was just the next thing I did. So I went to dental school. And during the first 2 years, I was still not sure if I wanted to be a dentist. Even though I can do the work, there's a mixture of, the sciences where you have to learn, all the chemistry, the biochemistry and all that, but there's also the dexterity part, which I really enjoy because, I just like to work with my hands. So I see people struggling with it, but it comes natural to me, when I learn it. So, but even with that, I was still not very sure if dentistry was my path. And, it was not only until, the third year when I was in the clinic, when I first met my patient, that finally everything clicked for me because I did not know why I was learning all those, preclinical things, cutting on the block and doing all those things without end and not knowing why that was applicable to what I was going to be doing. But when I first met my patient, suddenly, I was learning that to be able to perform on a human being. And when I met my patient, I was performing that and it really just clicked for me. So at that time, I was like, yeah, this is really what I want to do. And that began my journey in dentistry. So that's how I got started. it was really not any inspiring story that I wanted to be a dentist. No, it was just the next thing I thought I could do, and I was not even sure in the beginning. But this is like 30 years in, almost 30 years in. I'm so glad I took that trip down to to visit the dental school and lead me to where I am right now today. So yeah, that's how I got started.
I love that so much. I think I mentioned this before one of our previous conversations. Like my own background is biomedical engineering. So is it typical rationale, like something logical, something in the medical space? And obviously both of us ended up doing something different. But I quote this quite often. I think it was Steve Jobs. He gave I think it was Stanford. He was giving a speech for that. It always comes to mind when I hear people's journeys, and it was basically to the effect of, as you're going through life, you're always just thinking, what's the next best decision? What's the next best decision? And it's only when you look back that you can actually connect the dots and you can actually paint that narrative. But in real time, it's
You don't know.
it,
You don't know
yeah,
what's going to happen.
yeah. It seems that there's no rhyme or reason, and you can look back to, you can paint this sort of hero's journey of your whole life. But at the time, you're just winging it. You just think, okay, what's the best decision now? What's the best decision now? And it all works out.
It all works out for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say it works out because you know it will. If you have that faith in yourself, it will work out. By extension, it will.
Yeah.
So when you got that first kid, what that client or patient, what specifically made you realize, wow, this is for me? Was it the reaction? Was it the way you could see this was truly impacting the quality of their lives? Do you dive into a bit about what you found so rewarding about that first experience when you had your first real patient?
Yeah, I think there's a few factors. It's like, I learned how to do all the like the physical thing, how to cut a crown and all that. But when you're doing on a typodon, it's just is, at least to me, it feels fake. But when you actually have a patient that's telling you all the issues they're having, and now you feel like, okay, I actually have a solution for them, and that's why I'm doing it on this patient, and it really just for me just makes sense, that all the time I put in learning things that I have no idea why I'm learning. Because, for one thing, one of the things that really doesn't make sense to me was, they gave me a round burr, but they wanted me to cut a square hole. And I'm like, it's just geometrically cannot be done. So I keep on thinking about that. It's like, but what's the point of doing that when we know we can't do it physically? But it doesn't really matter, what they were asking. It matters when you're doing it on a patient. It doesn't need to be a square hole. It just needs to work on the patient. So that really, for me was like the point that I think, okay, I learned all that to train my hand skill to be able to perform what I need to perform with the patient. So that, in the beginning of the journey really, reinforced the fact that, hey, I actually find this very interesting at that point. And obviously, throughout my journey, there was a lot of those kind of moments because, coming out of dental school, I thought I would be a drill and fill crown, and that's all I would do, nothing else. Which is, for me at that point in time where I graduated from dental school, I thought, what, that's all I'm gonna do, nothing else. But after my 29 years, almost 30 years, I've done almost every aspect of dentistry that I never thought I would do. Period. So I think, for me, dentistry is so fulfilling because there's so many aspects of it, and you can keep on learning, keep on, applying yourself, keep on growing in the whole journey. And that to me really resonate because, some dentists don't do as many things that I do, but that's fine. That's what they want to do. But for me, I wanted to figure out where is the end? Where could how could I develop myself so as to be able to help my patient with different aspect of their health. So that really motivates me, to go every day. And that's so fulfilling for me.
I love that. And as you're saying that, what strikes me, and I could way off the mark here, but correct me if I'm wrong, is the way you speak about dentistry or your practice and so on. It nearly feels like your sole goal is basically to help as many people as you can and become the best version of yourself. And there's a quote that comes to mind to me from a guy I know, and he said, "Business is a journey of self-discovery disguised as a quest for profitability. It's just a vehicle. It's it's growing the business isn't the goal itself. It's a byproduct of you focusing on yourself."
It's a byproduct of when you are really helping that person, they will reward you. You know, in the beginning, I don't know anything about dentistry, and I totally do not understand anything about business. But in order to practice, you need to keep your business going, and that's part of the whole deal. Like for me, I think the very first thing, it was not really skill, it was more communication.
Mhm.
And that's the most key for any, at least what I do every day now is communicating. Because unless the patient has a connection with you, I don't care how much skill you have, right? If the patient does not connect with you, does not like you, there's nothing you can do for the patient, period. So, and dentistry, it's almost like a not psychologist, but we're very, very close with the patient. And in order for me to perform the kind of things that I do with my patient, if they don't like you, they don't have a rapport, they don't have a connection with you, they will never say yes to you, period. So the first part was, okay, when I got the skill to do dentistry, I thought it was the hardest thing. And I have a professor that flies in from Pittsburgh. I went to school in Philadelphia. He would fly every Friday to come in and teach the clinic. And he told me one day, Bernard, I think one day you're gonna realize that what I'm teaching you right now about how to, prepare a crown, how to do a root canal, all this kind of stuff will be the simplest thing you do every day. And at that moment, I was like, you got to be kidding me. That is not true. I don't believe you. But 5 years later, after I was practicing, I called him up and said, that's exactly true. It's the simplest thing I do. I don't even think about it. It's how to, the daily running of the business. How do you talk to your patient? How do you communicate? How do you communicate with your staff? How do you lead? All those things matters even more when you're really in practice, which in dental school, as a student, we were just so busy into learning the science, the technique, and we're busy with all that, which is fine. You need to learn that. But the most important thing is still the business. It's still how do you communicate with the patient. And I think if you want to be a successful clinician, you have to put all that together, because if not, you're going to be one of the most frustrating people you've ever, like one of the most frustrating career, because you have all the head knowledge, but yet you cannot on anyone. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I always say that like everything in life boils down to the quality of your relationships, both with yourself and with others. And this, like any relationship, I would say, and the principles from relationships are universal, be it business, be it family, be it romantic, be it friends. Communication, trust are paramount. Like in our world, like on the marketing agency side of things, having great ideas and knowing the technical side of things is absolutely no use. You can't communicate, have that dialogue with the clients. What do you need? What are your business goals? And listening, and actually just actively listening and actually hearing what the other person has to say is so important, because as you said, you can have the best idea in the world, but if they don't trust you, if they feel like you're missing the mark altogether, you're bringing a horse to water and trying to make it drink. The horse will do what you want.
It's the hardest thing, and you're trying to force the issue. You get backfired every single time. So, I mean, there are going to be challenges, but I think if you have the you got to work at your communication skill. Once you have that, it's actually very fun to meet people, because the discovery, not so when someone come to me with all this issue that they have, they are looking for someone that they can work with, but I'm also looking for someone that I can work with. It's a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
And I don't, I used to think, oh, well, we should take every client, but you know what? Some clients you just cannot work with because you either have no rapport, or it's going to be a disaster if you work with them. So you need to know, you need to be able to identify that, and so that you don't want to have a stressful career. No. Life is too short. So yeah, you need to be able to differentiate that. I think that's very important too. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, Bernard. I think at the end of the day, some people might think, oh, social skills is not that important, report not that important. We'll put it this way: if you had two people in a room, person A and person B, person A doesn't look like they want to be there. They look like they know their stuff, but I mean, I call this the airport test for hiring team members. It's like, would I mind being stuck in an airport with this person for 5 hours? If not, I don't want to work with them, But if I know we can have a good time, good conversations, as you said, the trust is naturally going to be there. You can find out what you want to. And on your end, the cooperation is going to be there. It's like you had a personal trainer, but the client absolutely hated the personal trainer. Personal trainer is not going to be able to get good results, because anything that they recommend, the client's just going to completely ignore. That.
Exactly. And you need, I think, like in dental school, we don't even think about that. And we just think that, in those days where dentists just say, hey, this is what you need to do, and that's it, those days are over. I mean, people are more sophisticated. They come in, they want to see who you are, if they can work with you before they say yes. And that's so critical to your success. So you need to be, and especially in dentistry, because nobody wants to pay money to be hurt. And everything we do on them, they're unpleasant. Period.
Yeah.
So of course they want to find someone that they like to, they have rapport with, that they think that when they tell the physician or the dentist that, hey, they're having issues, the physician needs to, hear them. So that's very critical, I think, for that to say yes.
I think I'd agree. I mean, I've seen this in obviously medical professionals, obviously in my space with biomedical engineering, digital marketing, and the consistent theme that I see that in people that struggle is a lack of, or what I think we're alluding to here is just humility, like knowing your stuff, but also acknowledging, like, I can't be that arrogant that I'm just going to aggressively prescribe something to someone. Like, I know better than you. And I'm seeing this so often. You're probably familiar with the famous book, The E-Myth Revisited.
No.
Right. Really good. There's a really good metaphor here, and it's basically that when people go into business, they're effectively a technician, right? They know the nuances of fulfilling, and the metaphor they give in the book is a woman that wants to open a bakery. Right? She's an amazing baker. She used to work for another bakery. So she says, you know what? I'm going to go out on my own and start my own bakery. How hard could it be?
Yes.
And then as she starts, she realizes, wait a second, I don't need to learn how to bake. I need to learn, supply chain. So then she needs to become an entrepreneur. And you basically need to become several people when you're running a business, not just the technician, which, as you said, you need the dental skills. We need to be the entrepreneur. You need to be able to think of the business itself on a meta level. And then she continues to grow it, and she realizes, okay, my day to day isn't just baking, it's actually managing the business. And then she realizes I need to take on another identity as well, which is the manager, because you need to manage other people. So this is I think where a lot of people, as you said, you don't learn this dental skill or most colleges. When you're starting a business, you learn the technical side of things, but you also learn how to be a manager and also an entrepreneur. Without all three of those legs, it's like a three legs of the stool. If you knock one out, the whole thing falls over.
Exactly. Your business will fail and you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah, 100%. But I see it all the time where you get people, the stereotypical engineering nerdy types where they might know how to code or they might know how to build something, and I can't get any clients. I'm like, because you come across like an arrogant, I won't swear, but someone makes a suggestion, you tell them, no, you're wrong. And there's a famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I think in a nutshell, it can be summarized, you have one mouth, you have two ears. Listen to other people, speak less than you, let the other person speak more than you do. Actually listen, actually care. And that single-handedly will make a bigger impact to your business than anything else, because people will want to work with you and interact with you, as you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one, I meet a lot of new patients, and one of the things that keeps on coming up when we talk to them is that, wow, you actually talk to your potential patient. I say, yes, I do. Because, then what they told me, I had a lead that came in. He's like, the patient was in the practice for 2 hours and spoke to the dentist for 1 or 2 minutes. That's it. The whole time she was in the practice. So for me, it's the other way around. When they come in, I actually talk to them first. And I really just want to figure out what they're really looking for. And I just ask the question, what are you in here for today? And that's it. I just shut up. And they will tell me everything that I need to know. So I think that's, and I find that process so fascinating, because everyone has a different story. Everyone has different motivation. And you need to figure out whether if you want to be part of their solution or not. And that process is really intriguing and very rewarding if you find the right patient to work with. So that's what I've learned after all these years. If I were to be able to do it all over again, I wish I have today's knowledge. And going back to when I first bought a practice, I had no clue what I was doing at all. And you're just stumbling along the way and you figure it out, and I wish I had someone to tell me, hey, this is my journey. It probably doesn't work that way. You probably have to experience it and grow yourself to who you're going to become, because everyone is different. Every dentist is different. I'm different from the next dentist, and everyone has to find their way, I think. But I believe I found my way, and I'm glad I did. Went on this long journey with a lot of training, not only clinical skills, but consult that teach me how to sell. Most dentists feel like they're not a salesperson. They are.
Everyone's a salesperson. Yeah.
I have to sell. In dentistry, if you don't sell, your business will fail. So if they don't think they're in sales, they don't know what they're doing.
It's that whole, there's this study, it's often cited. I say every study's from Harvard. It probably isn't Harvard, but there's this whole study somewhere in some famous college. And they basically got two groups of people. Okay? The whole idea was quality versus quantity. What's more important? And they got two groups of art students. And they said, okay, your job for the year, by the end of the year, is to make the best vase or vase of pottery as you can. And one group, their goal, they just focus on making one. They spent the entire year crafting this perfect vase. The other one, their goal was to just make as many vases as possible, get as many reps in, make a new one every single day.
Yeah.
What happened basically was by the end of the year, I'm getting somewhere with this. The ones who actually weren't focused on perfection, who were just trying to help as many, get as much practice put in, by the end of it, they had the quality and the quantity and the quality because they'd actually had the data. And I suppose my point, the reason I'm saying this is so often people are in that technician stage where I need to, I know my stuff, but I don't need sales. I just need to be really good at what I do. It's like, you can't get better at fulfilling if you've nobody to fulfill.
Exactly. You're the most frustrating clinician because it's what they learned.
Exactly. It's a chicken or the egg situation. You get better, you need data, but to get the data,
You got to work.
Exactly. Yeah. So it all starts with social skills and those soft skills that kind of get brushed under the rug a lot. And
I think a lot of times also is, I know dentists, I mean, they're all perfectionists. Most of them are. They are very afraid to fail
yeah,
because they
Yeah.
they want to be comfortable, which I understand. But in order to grow, if you're not failing, you're not growing. I'm
100%.
just telling you to go fail, but
Actively, yes.
actively, but how many things that you have done that is of any consequences, right? It's going to be that easy. No.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, in order to get to a certain place, you need to, and there's a certain risk involved, but it's calculated. And you need to be okay with failing, because when you fail, then you look back and say, okay, what have I done wrong? Or how could I have improved that? Because if you don't do that, you're not improving. You're doing the same old. And for me, that's just not going to cut it, because then I'll go nuts. Because if I'm doing the same thing again and again and trying to expect different results, that's the meaning of insanity, I think.
Yeah. Einstein. Yeah, exactly. You look at this in every domain. There's no athlete in the world who is successful that didn't put themselves in a position to fail. I always say, I think your risk tolerance very often is a bigger indicator of your success. Educated risk tolerance is a bigger indicator of your success than your intelligence. I'd rather be someone of average intelligence, not that you're definitely above average intelligence, but I'd rather be someone with average intelligence that actually goes out there, takes the shot, than a genius who just stays in their room and won't socialize. Yeah, it's fear in a nutshell. But jumping into that, this is all well and good. We know why you got into dentistry. We know your values, I believe, in business. But what made you pull the trigger on that topic to buy your own practice, to get started on your own?
So, I bought my practice very, very early on. And again, I didn't know what I was doing. So I met my future wife, and she's from New Hampshire. So I was, as I told you, I'm from Singapore. So I went to school in Philadelphia. So I told her I can live anywhere in the country. So she's like, I want to be close to my parents. So we came out to visit in New Hampshire. And at that time, I thought it was a good idea to call a dental broker, to say, hey, any practices for sale in the area. So that's what I did. I mean, not knowing what I was trying to, I had no clue what I was doing. I tried to find a job too at a chain, and I interviewed. There's like, yeah, you can come. So the next thing, I met the broker, and we saw a practice, and my imagination ran wild. And so next thing I knew, I was buying a practice. Again, I have no clue how to run a practice. I mean, my wife helped me a lot. I mean, we were like partners in crime. She helped me manage the business together because, in the beginning, I don't know anything. She's like, all right, let's just, with two heads is better than one. You run the dentistry, and I'll help you with the staff and all that kind of stuff. So it's like collaboration. So we did that, but still we have no clue what we were doing. But that's how we got started. And I think what happened was, I think the broker misrepresented the practice. They said we came, like it says 3,000 patients and all the kind of things. And then we came in and we really do and of course they say, do your due diligence, find out if that's true. Who knows what we're looking at? I'm looking at chart. At that time, there's still paper charts. It looks like there's 3,000 of them. But who knows if they're active? That's the next question. Are they active? And they were not. They were like 700. And I thought, gosh, that's only a third of what they represented. I'm going to go bankrupt. So that's what we thought. But, it didn't happen that way. I called the broker. I said, you misrepresent. We're going to go bankrupt. And he said, no, that's not how it works. You got to work hard. You got to learn and you got to work hard. In a way, he was right. And I worked hard. We worked hard. We apply ourselves. We work hard. And sure enough, every year we got better. So that's how I got into, practicing, bought a practice and practice. But I thought, if earlier on I joined a group, a like corporate dentistry, I probably, my life would be so different. Simply because, I think that what's going to happen, I'm going to be so stuck in that because I'm going to make, a good, comfortable living, and I'm never, ever going to own my own business. So that's very different than my path that I've chosen, which I've chosen not knowing what I was doing. So in a way, I was lucky that I was able to take that risk and just do it. But it would have been so different. I think probably I would not be as fulfilled being an employee of someone rather than just dragging out myself and I own my destiny. And I do what I feel like is me. But if I work for someone else, probably not. I have to cater to what they want me to do. So I think that's also very critical in this day and age, simply because I think a lot of dental students right now, because of the amount of debt they have to get in when they go to dental school, they're really, like everyone is joining corporate dentistry. And I have nothing against corporate dentistry. They're a good thing, but I just don't feel like they're going to be able to develop themselves like if someone had just started and just did it themselves and went privately and do it. I think it's a little different between the two paths. So we'll see what dentistry will bring in the future, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. This is obviously that when at the end of the day, when you're an entrepreneur, there's always the question. You're always kind of wondering, would the grass have been greener if I had done something else? And then you look around and you say, as you said, you're the master of your own dentistry. It's like, well, your success, as I mentioned, is proportional to the amount of risk you can take, but also the amount of accountability. And there's this whole idea, I think it's Nassim Taleb, a famous author, one of his books around the corner. And he talked about this idea of having, skin in the game, basically.
Yes.
And, your compensation in life in general will be proportional to the amount of skin in the game you have. In this case being, the definition of that being is, if the venture fails, you face the downside. And that's obviously related to your risk tolerance. If you're part of a big company, and again, I'm putting it on the record, I am not knocking that. I have a lot of family members most of my family members, if not all of them, they work for companies and it suits them. Great. They switch off, they leave the office, they enjoy their lives. But as you said, I think you have that growth mindset, I think there's a very strong correlation. If you just want to grow, just because you want to find out what is my capacity? It's like progressive overload in the gym. How can I get stronger and more resilient? I think you need to be able to do that. And obviously by extension, then you get the upside. So the lows are lower because you face the brunt of it, but
Yeah.
the fulfillment, I think, is significantly higher. That's the way you're wired.
Yeah. Sometimes you feel a little alone, but you know what? It's your journey.
Yeah.
No one can do it for you.
Would you change anything if you were to go back all over and you thought younger Bernard? Would you change anything, or would you do the same thing?
Probably not, because maybe I take more risk than most people. I know most dentists are very adverse to risk. Uh, like I'll tell you, like an anecdotal, it's, like I went to take a class, right? And the class was, I think it cost like 20,000. So when I
Mm.
told my classmate, my longtime classmate, I said, I want to go take that class. And I said, well, what class was that? I was like, it's an implant, how to immediate placement of implant. And he asked me, how much does it cost? I said, at first I was like, who cares how much it costs, right? It's how much you learn. So when I told him it was around 20, he's like, you're crazy. So I went anyways, For me, it's just I'm more into the knowledge. So I went to that class. I think there were like 16 of us, right? And we went through the class. It was a 5-day class. So after that, I came back. I was like placing it immediately. Oh, maybe you tell me I'm crazy because I'm taking risk. But hey, I've gone to the class. I know what the risks are. And obviously I take risks, but I'm not suicidal. I don't want to get into problem. But the long and short of it is, after 1 year, I contacted those 16 of us. Like I'll talk to some of those people. I was like, you know what? How many have you done? And some people would tell me none. Some people would tell me 5. Some people would tell me 6. I was like, seriously, you took a class, 20,000, you learned how to do it, and you did 6 in a year. And
Yeah.
the comparison is this: after that year, I did 100
Jesus. Wow.
in 1 year.
Wow.
So when I talked to the guy who gave the class, he's like, exactly. You're 1 or 2 out of the 10. And
Wow.
you're never gonna, I think the 80-20 rules always applies. He's always telling me, you know what? Some people are just, they come to the class, but they cannot get it off. Either communication wise, or they lack of confidence, or they just don't want to do it, even though they have the knowledge. So
Mm.
I think I'm just that type that are willing to learn and willing to take the risk. Have I failed? Yes, I failed during the time. But what are you gonna do if you don't do it? How are you gonna learn, right?
It's exactly like I said about that pottery study. You just got the reps in, and by extension, you're ironically much better at actually doing that
Mhm.
thing than if people are too scared to just, there's that Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% the shots you don't take. You've just been taking the shot again and again and improving. I mean, I love this. There's so many ways you get into this. I'd like to hear a bit about the whole reconstruction process, the entire mouth reconstruction surgery. I feel like this is sort of the culmination of all of these skills, all this investment, all this time, this energy. Can you share a bit about that treatment specifically, and why you find it so fulfilling?
Well, so obviously I didn't do this from day one. After I know how to place immediate placement. So I thought, hey, you know what? That's cool. If someone broke a tooth, I can give them a treatment. So, if I thought about what I did though, I think that's probably 6-7 years ago, I would not have thought that I would be doing this, because this is bringing it up to another level. And if you think about it, if you try to run from the get go, you're never gonna. I never thought I will be here, but it's a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, and then you get into this and you learn, right? So
Mm.
I think, you know, what really motivates me is when you see these patients that comes in, they have they either have no teeth, right? They have dentures and they hated it. I mean, they don't use it. They put it in the cup, even though they have the denture, they just cannot use it. Or when they come in, every single tooth is broken and they have abscess everywhere. So I thought, hey, you know what? Wouldn't it be cool if I can bring them from that state to replacing every single thing that's in their mouth and basically transform them so that they're not a dental cripple. So I thought, wow, that would be very cool. So it's quite a journey to learn how to do it because there are many aspects until you get into it, you're not aware of it because you think it's simple, but it's not because there's so many aspects that could go wrong and also planning the case and all that. So, I mean, I walk, you know, every step slowly. First of all, most of the time I use guides to do it. But after you do it for so many times, you're like, you know what? I probably can freehand it. So then you progress to that. I'm not telling you guides doesn't have its value. They do, but you know, I think you know freehand is a little bit more. It's not as fixed as in you know a guide. It's great, but sometimes when you get into the case, you thought the guide might work, but you put it on the
Mm.
patient, and you know it doesn't work because something is still not right. You have to freehand it at that time because when you're actually performing the surgery, you cannot just tell the patient, "Hey, you know what? The guide doesn't work." So ship, right?
Half through.
Because the patient is already committed and you're committed.
Mm.
So that's kind of like a progression that I did. And I find that's more flexible because there are so many things that are so different than how you think it's going to go when you actually do it. So I would say someone who wants to do this, be prepared to just be a student for a long time. And you know, just, you know, I mean, it didn't happen in one day, but you need, I think this is probably one of the hardest thing to do. I mean, I've done biostatic dentistry. It took me 4 years to learn how to do that. Um, and that's very fulfilling too, you know, TMJ issues and all that kind of stuff. And I also brought that knowledge with me to my FUMA rehab because you're basically changing the way they buy. And obviously, there's a reason why their teeth fail. Sometimes it could be because of occlusion. So that is helpful, what I know from before. So you kind of build a little at a time. That's how I did it over 10, 15 years. And that's the reason why I always say I'm not ready to retire anytime soon because it took me so long to get to where I am.
Mm.
Just gonna go retire. How's that fun? So I mean, so right now I think the most important for me, I think I have about good 10 years to go, and I want to help as many patients as I can. Because not everyone that I can help, but there are some of them that I could help to go from a dental cripple to fulfilling everything that they have dentally. So I think that's very meaningful to me where I am right now in my career. So I would like to do more of that because you see the transformation. It really is challenging, but it's very fulfilling for me.
I love that. There's a concept of skill stacking comes to mind. You know, basically to get where you want to be, it's not usually one big skill. It's usually 20 or 30 micro skills, much like business itself. And often the people aren't where they want to be. You know, these skills, it's like building a bridge. You're from point A to point B. You could have, you know, in your case, you could have dental skill one, dental skill two, or growing a business, you could have the technician skill. And you're wondering why you're not where you want to be. You're wondering why you not want to be. And you need to figure out, okay, what is the next skill set that I need to learn, acquire? And that's the next brick in the bridge. And then all of a sudden, when you get that final skill and you don't know what that's going to be, all of a sudden everything works. And it's a case of just constantly growing, constantly having that mindset of, okay, what is the next skill that I need to learn? Because frankly, I'm not just good enough right now.
Yeah. And I think from what you're saying, the other thing also that's very important is not only just clinical skills, communication skills.
Yeah, that's the bridge.
In hand. Because if you cannot communicate and you cannot create the urgency for the patient to do it, you still cannot do the case. So, so it has to be like together. That's why it's so, sometimes if you think about it, it's very, it's crazy that it works, right? Because so many things has to come together, but it doesn't work. I mean, it's just a natural progression, and does it come easy? No, it doesn't. But you got to work at it every single day. And I think someone who wants to do that, unfortunately, you got to be a student your whole life, and that's great because you learn everything new. You learn new things every day. Like nowadays, I think I should not be able to find anything new. Oh yeah, there's a lot of new things that, I just found this out. And you're just doing on a patient and you figure out, this is exactly what's happening. And you look back and see some of the failures you've had and the answer is right in front of you. Isn't it great that you could do that even at this stage? I find that very fulfilling. I find that very challenging and that motivates me to go to work.
I love that. I love that so much. And I want to talk quickly on your marketing side of things, like, how your patients actually tend to come. What have you tried in the past that didn't work? What do you worked on today? And what do you think could be improved? Where do you think the opportunities are?
Well, so one thing I noticed, they're very old school dentists that tells you, hey, you should not even market. And I was just like thinking, well, then how would people know what you're doing?
Yeah.
You don't ever market. I mean, like, to some people, that is, here is the same as the other, but exactly, we don't do anything, dude. We do very different things. So I've done, maybe call me daring, I've done most marketing that's out there. I've done magazines, I've done newspaper ads, radio ads, now digital marketing and all that. And right now we're concentrating on social media marketing and all that. So primarily that's what we're doing now. I think, for what we're trying to get, it's probably the most effective. I haven't found, the best way. If I knew, that would be great, but I don't think there's a surefire way yet. If you have it, I would like to have first. So for me, it's still very frustrating. I think it's something that that we need to learn, because if we cannot find patients consistently, then we cannot progress, right? So that's one of the key things that I don't work on all the time, but with my office manager, we work on it. We bounce ideas off each other. We bounce ideas off marketing companies, and then that's how we do trial and error.
Yeah.
Just going.
I think the marketing is much like that metaphor of the bridge that I just gave. It's, you do need to know, okay, what are the constraints? I mean, the term I like to use is an ecosystem. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And when my issue personally, this is engineering kind of background in me, is when somebody's so focused on one channel, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And it may not be, some people say, oh, SEO, that's the solution for everything. Like, it can be, but it's not. It's people might say the same thing with Facebook ads. And it's much like, as you'd say, if you had one specific dental treatment that you offered and someone came in with a different problem, like, yeah, exactly. There's no point in trying, as you said, make that square incision when they need a circular incision. You need to to know the time and the place for everything.
And the most intriguing thing is the patient knows that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you know why
Why?
you they just leave. Because
Yeah.
when you hammer everything's a nail, they will when you only offer that, and they will just leave you. It's sometimes we figure it out. I figured out
Mm.
because the patient came back and we talk about it. But that's one fault of the dentist that I realized. So that's why, when I see a patient right now, I have no agenda. You tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you whether if I want to do it with you.
Mm.
So that's one thing I learned after all these years. But the marketing, is something that I think I need to develop more. I think most dentists need to, unless you're just doing bread and butter fillings, crowns, and
Yes.
nothing against that. But that's not what I want to do. So
Yeah.
we need to find an innovative way to find these patients, because it's one of the more frustrating thing that is doing what I do. I need to get that right, but it's very tricky, like you say.
There's nuance. Yeah. I think I'm quoting, I mean, I usually quote a lot of people, but there's another Steve Jobs quote in case you didn't hear enough, but there's a, there's one occasion that I often think of, and it's basically he was giving a speech, and the guy in the audience was trying to act really smart, and the guy said to him, and I think it was about the iPhone, and he said, "Why do you build it on such a programming language? You could have used something else." Steve Jobs waited maybe 15 or 20 seconds. He was thinking, and he said, "What I find most important is begin what the end user or customer wants and work back to the strategy technique. Because when you start off with the strategy and then try and force it into what the end person wants, you end up missing the mark every time." So I think it's so important to begin with the ending in mind, as I said, communicate. Because we've had conversations about this. There are certain treatments that you may be offering where taking a cookie cutter approach doesn't work, because it might be, there could be nuance. It could be, you have to look at how affluent the area is. You have to look at how expensive the treatment is. And without really getting to know the root of the issue, unintended, you know, you put it to know the right way. It's essentially, it's like driving in a direction and then taking out the map, halfway through and be like, oh, should have gone left.
Yeah.
100 miles away.
I think the full mouth reconstruction business is one of the most. It's almost diametrically opposing, because it needs a lot. It's very expensive, but yet the people who needs it are the ones that cannot afford it.
Mm.
It's not like cosmetic dentistry. Cosmetic dentistry only are performed by people who, the target audience are the ones that are affluent because they want to look a certain way, right? And they have the money to do it. But what I'm doing here is totally different. It's like they need, but they cannot afford it, and that's the main problem.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We've talked about this before, but I think a large part of digital marketing people don't really focus on is the importance of education, especially, as I said, when it's a more niche treatment, especially in medical. And we get this all the time, be it cosmetic dentistry, be it normal dentistry, be it aesthetics, whatever. Taking a strategy where you're empowering the end user to actually learn about what you're doing helps every stage of it, because number one, you're going to get more qualified people. Number two, as you said, when you have that first interaction, they're probably the type of person you might want to work with, because they've taken the time to actually learn about what it is. The sales process is more similar, it is nicer. And you business wise, you close more people because they've already said, okay, Dr. Bernard Ang, and his team are at Amherst Village Dental, they know their stuff clearly. So I think instead of just trying to go straight to the end and trying to close people, having that interim step or steps plural where people learn about the treatment, it's just I think a lot of people try and rush things. They try and close with a certain way.
This process.
Exactly. Yeah, without warming them up. So I think that's a really important part. We've talked about that, but internally, then within the business, Bernard, you obviously you have a team around you. When you started off, you were really, I'd imagine, operating largely on your own, or you didn't have the leadership skills. What would be kind of some of the biggest takeaways in terms of mindset shifts, in terms of how to be a good leader for your team? How does that look?
I think you got to lead by example. You know, in my mind, I think leadership should do almost everything that, like for example, I lead by example, right? How I would put it is this, you know, like in the practice, you have a lot of instruments that are you're going through. You have the hygiene has their own instruments. I have my own. So I have staff that's helping me, but sometimes say, you know what, they have no time. They might be seeing a patient, and when I see all those things pile up, guess what? I do it. My son would always tell me, "Hey, you know what? You're the dentist. You don't need to do that." I said, "What do you mean by that?" If my team, who's totally busy right now with everything that's functioning in practice, and I'm the one who's free, I'm the one who is going to be doing it, because that's how we get the whole team ahead, right? So I think, most dentists say, "Hey, you know what? I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't do this. I don't know." If you're the owner and if you own it, you do whatever it takes. I do whatever it takes. And the other thing that is very funny that always happens is, okay, so we have marketing campaign, the leads comes in, it's in my phone, it's in my office manager's phone. I will be beating my office manager to reply to the patient. And I call, okay, so this is an incident that just happened this week. I called the patient picked up, and I told him I'm the dentist, and she's like, "What?" I said, "Most dentists don't call." I say, "Well, but this one does." So we talked about her treatment. So she was about to come in, and I wanted some information. She didn't want to give it to me. So she called the practice the following week, Monday. And she's like, "Hey, is this a practice, or is this a scam? Because he claims he's the dentist." I must have said, "Yes, he is the dentist, and this is a physical practice." So it's funny, right? So she actually came in. I think I saw her this past Wednesday, and I went up to her and I said, "Yeah, I do actually call the patient." That was how I started, because I knew it was her, and she laughed.
Oh my God, I was going to say, well, sorry.
No, so immediately you have that rapport, right?
Yeah.
Close that case, no problem. Simply because I just do a unconventional thing. I think being a leader means, for me, leading by example. You got to do everything that, whether if your staff does it or they don't want to do it, you got to do it. Because guess what? Ultimately, it's me. If my name is on the building, guess what? I'm responsible, right? I gotta lead by example. I gotta show them. I gotta lead them to say, "Hey, this is how I treat my patient." Because some people don't want to be treated that way, or some dentists cannot bother to treat them. I always call my patient after surgery, and you cannot imagine how much that really instill in them that you care. And she's like, "Hey, you don't have to call, but I'm glad you call. I'm doing great." I'm like, "I just want to make sure you're doing fine." And, that small little thing really instill in the patient that you actually for them. And now when you're suggesting treatment, because they know that you're for them, they always say yes. So these are little things that I've learned that, in order to to lead your staff, you cannot tell them what you need to do because some people don't want to listen. You got to do it. You got to show it, and you got to lead by example. I think that
I,
is what I've learned after all these years.
I love that. That's the question I was going to ask was how did she react when she found out, oh my God, he actually is that invested. He actually does care about me that much.
Just, I treat them as if I want to be treated that way, right?
Yeah.
Like one of my pet peeves is I hate to have someone wait for me because I hate to wait for anyone, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm running behind, I actually go up to the front and tell the patient, I'm sorry, we're running late. And they're like, need to come see. No, it matters to me that you're waiting. So that's one thing that, I mean, maybe that's how I'm made. I don't know. That's how I am. But I like to respect their time. And that's why I hate to run late. I mean, I'm always pretty efficient. And the other thing I learned is you got to be very flexible doing what I'm doing. Because if you're not, you got to be so inefficient. And in this time and age, everyone is time is money, and everyone has not enough time. So you gotta really show them that you're efficient. Or else they're like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait again, and that's not good for business. I don't think. Yeah.
I love that. And there's so many takeaways. So anyone listening, please take notes. Re-listen to what he just said because I think that's the embodiment of what we talked about when it came to social skills and listening and just respect. Like at the end of the day, respect and trust, as with any relationship, respect, trust, communication. That's the consistent theme we're seeing here. Accountability and continuously trying to grow. On that then, in terms of growing your own team, so when you've hired people in the past, what kind of traits do you look for when looking for a new team member? When you want to build a strong team that's aligned and you want to make sure that they uphold your clinic's values.
I think that's one of the most tricky thing is your team. And we've learned over all these years that it's very hard to gauge in an interview, right? Even if you think that lady or whoever has a lot of potential, it's not only when they come in and work with your team would you know that they're actually fitting the group, our team. And one thing we'll learn is, obviously we want to find someone who fits, but I think the more important thing is we figure out that, we bring a new member in, if they don't fit, is to let them go. Because a lot of times, a lot of groups, they just make do. And especially when you're running a efficient, like the way I like to run, if you don't have a member that's motivated or belongs to your team, we're rowing one way and that lady is rowing the other way. And it does not work. Not only does it not work, it might infect the staff or the team members that you had motivated already. Because if you let them pass, they're like, this is not fair. Why are they getting away with that? So, all in all, we figure out that we're not afraid to take time to look for the right person. And if we found the wrong person, we're not afraid to let them go because they are to choose to be there. And some of them actually, they turn around. They see what you're really about and they like to be part of it. And they buy in. So I mean, we're not figuring out how to find the best or when, some people can tell from an interview, but I just, my wife is, I think, much better with this than me. She would sense this and that, but even then, we still sometimes do not find the right person, but we also know that we got to let them go immediately. So we keep on playing it. Especially it's very challenging post-COVID. I have no idea where all those workers are. And I mean, we would love to know how to do that, but that's what I know after all these years is finding a team member is very hard, but it's very important.
Yeah,
If it's not the right one, you gotta let them go almost immediately.
100%. Yeah, hire slow, fire fast,
Mhm.
completely. And looking at the future, then Bernard, where do you see Amherst Village Dental in the next 5, 10 years? Like, what's the goal? What's the vision?
Well, I think obviously I like to improve my skills. I mean, there are still things that I would love to improve. But I think the next 10 years, probably at the end of 10 years, I'm going to retire. I would love to do more and more what I do right now. Um, Not saying that that's all I want to do, but knowing that I have limited time practice what I am doing right now, I love to do more of it. So I need to hone the marketing, the clinical, everything, so that it gets even more efficient. I think that's one thing people want. They want it done in a timely fashion. So they have their life. Life is just not dentistry. I mean, dentistry might be my life, but that's not the patient's life. They want to get, but what I do could be very time consuming. My smoothest case could be 3 months. I have cases that drag on to a year. Could be no fault of my own. It could be the patient's issue. But all I know, if I could improve that, it's always going to help with management of the patient and all that. So that's my goal.
Yeah, nice. And I'm conscious of the time, so I'll ask one more question. If you were to go back and give advice to younger Bernards and or anyone that was in his position, doesn't have to be just one, but what is the ultimate bit of advice that you would give to help them make the most of their career, I suppose their life in general,
Yeah,
knowing that all that you know?
I mean, I talked a lot. I mean, maybe lately I've spoken to some younger dentists. When you're getting out of school, it does not mean that you learn everything about dentistry. It just means that you actually have the certificate to start learning. You just begin your journey. So if you want to be good, be prepared to be a student your whole life. And that's one advice. And be prepared to fail if you want to learn a lot of stuff. If you don't fail enough, you're not going to learn enough. You might be the leader, but you can be replaced. In my mind, you're just one of your team members. Might be an important, but you're still one of the team. Anything you expect your team to do, you might want to do yourself too. So that's
Love that. Stay humble, keep learning, realize that it never ends, and just enjoy the process of learning and helping others and getting to know them. Nice. That's, that being said, I just want to say how much I've really enjoyed this conversation, Bernard. Honestly, I think a lot of people can learn a lot from your mindset. I think there's a lot of great parallels between the way you approach life and business and just, again, using it as a vehicle to help people, but also just get better at your craft and grow as a person. So, yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. And yeah, where can people find out more about you and what you do?
Thank you.
No worries. And the best place to find you, website, is that the
AmherstVillageDental.com. Yeah.
probably that's AMHERST villagedental.com.
Yep.
Until next time.
Thank you.